Hello and welcome to this week's exciting show. I am Janet Lewis.
And I'm speechless because I think her voice is so sexy.
And we're here to bring you an exciting show about Sniffles and Snot to treat or not.
I made that one up.
Doesn't that sound exciting?
Yep.
There's so many people sick this time of year. And, we did one on depression and not long ago, and now we're going to talk about being sick, getting sick, taking flu shots, not taking flu shots, suffer through or get help. And Dr. Lewis is going to sum it all up for us today and figure out what the best roadmap is for us to stay healthy during this cold and flu season.
Yeah, this is my opinion. You can take it or leave it. We have a spirit of discernment, which I think everybody should listen to, and probably not enough people do. But there's a big difference between the cold and the flu. If it's a flu, personally, I go to the MD and get a shot of cortisone. I've always threatened to go to the feed store and get cortisone for a dairy cow. Although my feed store lady says, Dr. Lewis, are you buying this for you? I said, how much would you dose a 170-pound chicken? And it really freaks her out. We all have this. I want to talk, I'll get into prevention.
Why do we all have this? It seems like every time this time of year rolls around, everybody comes down with it. How is that possible? Is it the heat turning on in the house? Or is it people getting flu shots? I mean, I actually read just a little while ago that there was a husband and wife, and they're both sick with the flu. And he said, so much for me getting a flu shot. He said, because I got one and now I'm sick. So he's wondering, well, how did that happen? So what's in the air that's making everybody suddenly be sick?
I try not to get into the controversy of to vaccinate or not, because there's all kinds of opinions. Personally, people ask me that, and I said, I'm not going to give you an opinion. You can read the Center of Disease Control, and then you can read National Vaccine Information Center or Vaxism or something like that and make your own decision. And they say, do you take it? And I said, well, hell no, I don't take it. God gave me an immune system, and I know how to boost it. But that doesn't mean that they don't give you some kind of help. That's for you to decide, not for me, but I'm not doing it. I think the best shot is a shot of whiskey, but and I don't do that much. I had one last night, first time in about a month, and oops, I forgot to put the lemon in it. That's lemon and honey, because honey's one of the things you should do.
I guess you'll have to try again tonight, huh?
Yeah, I'm a Baptist. They tell me I can't, so I have to, but I don't really drink much. But, most people have 2 to 4 colds a year, but I don't. And to answer your question, why do people have it? I think because we have a consciousness of that. And I think we create a lot of the things that we shouldn't. And I think it's because we focus on what we don't want rather than what we do want. And Janet and I have a tremendous amount of people that just love us and just go on and on and on about how much their lives have changed. And, oh, well, my life has been blessed because of this, and my kid has been blessed. And it goes on and on. But we have a tendency to focus on the one or two that give us holy heck. And we've had a couple of those lately. And it's like, well, you said our supplements cause the very same thing you had when you got here. And the last lady that was complaining, she was complaining about this and this. And we've given you twice as much time. So we don't focus on the bad ones. And I let her know that I'll dismiss your butt in a hurry. And she said, please don't give up on me. I said, tell me something good. And she went off on 9 different things that was good. And it's like, well, why are you... Anyway, you've got to focus on what's better. You've got to sit on the deer stand and clear your head. You've got to meditate. You've got to pray. And there's a lot of actual medical research, for those of you that like that, that say that if you clear your head and focus on what's right, therefore you get better stuff. So if your eyes are itchy and watery, yeah, you probably have a cold. If you just have the symptoms roughly from the neck and head up, mild to moderate exercise, but I don't think working out and hard cardio, I think it's walking would be a good thing. But you have to understand that even people that treat and are good at treating people and diseases, they have issues too. And there's a lot of predominant are prominent nutritionalists and things like that sometimes they die prematurely. And we all have issues, and I think it's good that we should be pretty polite. And it's not what you put in your mouth that defiles you, but what comes out of your mouth. That's out of the Bible. But that being said, yeah, you need to quit eating junk food. And I think one of the things that has hurt us and stressed us out is Facebook, because if somebody has a conflicting opinion, you get in a headbutting contest. But I think, on the other hand, that Facebook has been a good thing, because a friend of mine said last night he gave up Dr. Pepper and junk food for 12 days, and he's down 12 pounds or something like that. And he's a big preacher over in Virginia. And I didn't say it, but I told him 20 years ago, you're defiling your body by the junk you're putting into the temple of the Holy Spirit. And he said, well, if you bless it, it's okay. Yeah, but, and now 20 years later, he's finally come to the conclusion that what he puts in his body does make a difference. And the good side of Facebook, and I'm going to talk about relationships here in a minute, but the good side of Facebook is I can, tell my friend I grew up with that's in Atlanta, Georgia, to have a safe and happy trip to Texas tomorrow. And, oh, I'm sorry, your middle name is Fun. And she said, yeah. Now, we're bantering back and forth. And then I can say, oh, well, my friend Debbie in Midland that we grew up with, her family was the cornerstone in Hugh Springs, Texas, and they set a good example. And then Debbie will send me a real sweet email. Thanks for the mention. Facebook has done a lot of things to make us happier, to renew the positive relationships. So I invite people to dump the negativity and only hold on to what's happy. And I think then the incidence of colds and flu, because the decreased stress, the incidence will go way, way, way down. So you have to, the people that are healthiest have a driving passion and a really great purpose for their life, and their physical body will respond to where their mind already is. So that's why we have it. We need to focus on what's right, not what's wrong. There was one study, and I think this is hilarious, said that twice as many white divorced males under age 70 who live alone die from heart disease, lung cancer, and stomach cancer. I'd kind of beg to differ on that one, depending on who you're married to. I'm married to somebody that's really, really sweet, but that's not always the case. And it says 3 times as many men in this category die of hypertension and 7 times as many from cirrhosis of the liver. And it may be because they're lonesome and they're trying to drown their hurt in alcohol. And I don't think alcohol's a bad thing. I just think it should be done very small amounts and judiciously. In divorced people, suicide is 5 times higher. 5 times higher? Depending on who you're married to or who you divorced, you could be 5 times happier. Fatal car accidents was 4 times higher in divorced people. It's like, I don't know if that's really true. Maybe if you divorced somebody nice or somebody nice divorced you, but I can see how a happy marriage would decrease diseases and accidents, because Janet just spoils me rotten, and she's nice to me all day long. I don't know why, but she is. I thought she'd pipe up and tell me why she's nice to me, but apparently not.
I just like listening to you talk. It's just very soothing to my soul.
You're right. You need a laxative.
That actually will help your immune system if you make sure you're going really well.
That's
just
true.
FYI.
Most of your immune system's out of your GI tract, from 60 to 80%, depending on who you read. And I always say that. I say that quite a bit, depending on what research you read, because research can say anything. You have to have that spirit of discernment, to come to a good conclusion, I think. And here's the thing, and I'm going to kind of close about the psychological reasons of why we're sick. Some people, if you really get down to it and dissect it, it's not that there's something wrong with them. It's just that there's nothing right with them. Did that hurt?
That's sad. Yeah.
So if you focus on what's right, and one of our inspirational verses this morning was to be a people builder. So we've been practicing that, from the day we got, or from the minute we got here. And it kind of goes back to an old Swedish proverb that says, shared joy is double joy. And that's why on Facebook, if you're sharing your joy, it doubles it, or any way that you do it. But shared sorrow is only half a sorrow. So be careful who you pick as friends or who you allow to hang around you. We've been kind of blessed with some incredible friends, and you have to be excited about your future. That's the key. That goes back to what I said earlier, passion for your future, passion for what you're doing. And Janet and I love that. One of the controversies, and I do jump in the middle of this when people say, oh, my kid had a fever, so I gave him Advil, Tylenol, aspirin to reduce the fever. I'm thinking, well, God in his infinite wisdom gave you a fever so that during that fever, the virus or bacteria, it may not be hot enough to kill them, but it's hot enough they don't replicate. And some microorganisms can replicate or double themselves every 20 minutes. So if you have a fever, it just keeps them from growing. But if you reduce the fever, you actually can prolong the illness by several days. Now, just think about that one for a minute. And I'm all for being comfortable. I had bronchitis the other day, and I rarely go to the medical profession, although I do have a great deal of respect for them. And thank God the nurse practitioner didn't give me an antibiotic because I wouldn't have taken it anyway. And I had bronchitis. When I go to the MD or nurse practitioner, I'm sick. She gave me a shot in the butt, that cortisone I talked about. And it's like, oh, well, I'll feel better in about 2 hours. And then she gave me something to dry up the mucous membranes. And then she gave me something it was an expectorant. And it's like, wow, isn't that kind of conflicting? But anyway, I got better. Thank you for the cortisone shot. I felt better within 2 hours. So you've got to know, if you feel that blooming bad, go to the medical profession. They do have some things that can help. But as far as home remedies, these are things that help, and I think it's better to do it before you get sick. We talked about the prayer and meditation. There's a lot of research that talks about it. It increases brain function, especially if you get into the alpha waves, and you can do that with essential oils. That'll get you into the alpha waves, and that's why alpha wave, for example, rose, a very expensive essential oil, is an aphrodisiac, because it gets you into the alpha waves. But that's the creative area, and it reduces your stress and reduces your blood pressure. So purposely paying attention to what's right and what's good will actually multiply that. I talked briefly about the exercise. I'm not a big workout buff, but the other day, wow, we actually had a little time, and so I went to the deer lease for the first time this year, and it's over a month into the deer season, and I went and sat on the deer stand for an hour and a half. Janet stayed in the truck and, listened to music, I think, but I had to walk a little bit further, and I sat on the deer stand and watched 13 squirrels play, and then I had 4 deer walk up. All of them were legal to shoot. I hadn't shot a deer in many years, way over a decade. And then they cupped their ears, and I watched them. I like watching animals, and I knew something was coming. And I had a beautiful gun Janet bought me last year, real slick, Tika, and I knew something was coming. I'm assuming it was a wad of pigs. It was only one great big boar, and I chose not to even shoot it, which they might kick me off the deer leash for not doing that. But I didn't want to ruin my meditative state. I was just watching the animals and having fun. But the exercise of getting there, walking that extra mile, really helped. So think about that. And then sleep. Sleep is an issue. Many people say, but I have trouble sleeping. Yeah, well, if you knew what I took to sleep, you'd go, oh, my God. And some people say, well, just send me whatever you're taking. And there's several different bottles of different things. We do have good sleep aids, that help with different areas. Melatonin, 5-HTP, kava kava. I take the Honikiol, but it's anti-cancer also, as well as helping your adrenal glands, which helps with your stress levels. And I don't care what the price is, it's really worth it for how good it makes me feel and how deeply it makes me sleep, it's definitely worth it. Simple thing, nasal saline rinse. You put the salt water there, it attracts more moisture, softens up the mucus, and makes it easier to get out. There was an interesting study done back in the 1920s, I think it was, that there was a doctor that says if you will treat the ears, it will get rid of the cold much more quickly, and he would put a couple of drops of hydrogen peroxide in the ears. Now, you have to be very careful with that and do a very mild hydrogen peroxide, and it'll bubble, and it says it cuts the number of days down that you deal with the cold. And they were actually treating it for the flu in the 1930s. I don't know. I've not tried that. I guess next time I get one, I may try it, but I don't get sick much. Apple cider vinegar. And one reason is just because it has some extra minerals in it, and the other reason is it acidifies your stomach contents. And most of us, even the ones that think they have acid reflux, most of them don't have enough acid to kill the bacteria and viruses that enter into the stomach. So apple cider vinegar can be actually a good thing. Raw honey. You have to be careful that it's raw. I would not suggest getting honey from the big box stores where you don't know where it comes from, because there's a lot of fake honey on the market. Go support your local beekeeper. That would be me. Actually, I've not sold any honey. I gave it away. But I get more joy out of giving it away than I would getting money for it. My brother said, "Oh, you're going to make a lot of money off that. You got a lot more honey than I did." Well, my bees are happier. And I keep them on a dairy farm that's full of massive amounts of clover. Most of them I keep there. So raw honey's a good thing. Again, I think it's good if you mix it with a little whiskey, but, that's certainly debatable. Here's one I really want to talk about. I think it's important. Chicken soup.
Yeah, I like that. Chicken soup. Also like Lauricidin, which is what Mama's chicken soup helped you with, was the monolaurin, the lauric acid that was in the soup. But what we have is a monolaurin supplement, and it actually helps get rid of the colds, virus, flu bug. When that was going around a few years ago really bad, and there was nothing that would really touch it, we found out about Lauricidin. And thanks to that, it really helps you get over the crisis of the coughing and the congestion and the chills, and it kills yeast and all kind of good stuff. I'll include it on our show notes if you forget what I said, but it's called Lauricidin.
Boost immune system, and this company swears that it does not interfere with the efficacy of probiotics, because that was one of my major concerns. It does boost immune system. We take 2 or 3, 4 scoops a day just for immune system. So Janet's right about the lauric acid, and there is some in the chicken soup. And that's one of the people that are doing the massive amounts of coconut oil are generally much healthier because it's full of lauric acid, and that's where this monolaurin comes from. They concentrate it out of coconut oil. And I'd like to caution people to be very wary of what you read on the internet, because I've had a couple of people lately that read something that was totally stupid, but they took, and Janet shook her head like I said something incorrect. They read that, and then they said, well, I'm going to get off of this. And it's like, oh, okay. I've seen a lot of people die because they read the internet and made a stupid decision, had knowledge with no understanding to go with it. And I'm not being, I'm being totally honest. I've seen a lot of people die. It's like, good Lord, you're in your 50s. You made a bunch of dumb choices. Listen to somebody that knows what they're talking about. And let me tell you a story about that. Here's why you should submit to authority. Once upon a time, I had an old truck, and I'd hit the dimmer switch, and both lights would go out. So I went and bought a dimmer switch, and I thought, well, I don't like being a mechanic. I'd hire my shade tree mechanic to put the dimmer switch on. I said, here, put the dimmer switch on. So he put the dimmer switch on, and I hit it, and both headlights went out. And I said, you didn't fix this. The headlights are still going out. He said, Dr. Lewis, you didn't tell me to fix it. You told me to put on the dimmer switch. And the dimmer switch was not the problem. So I learned right then I needed to submit to authority, because this mechanic was a much better mechanic than me. I submit to authority when I go to my dentist. I submit to the authority and the wisdom of several different preachers that are wiser than me. So please don't think the internet is an authority, because it can get you in a lot of trouble, and it bothers me when people do that. But, it's their choice, but it's sometimes a sad choice. The lauric acid is a really, really good thing. I think if you would eat lots of fruits and vegetables for a lot of different reasons, ones that are high ORAC value, and that has to do with the antioxidant values. And there's one, I think I'll let Janet tell you about it, because it's like, oh my God, delicious.
Well, it's for the people that really don't want to eat the vegetables or don't have time. So many of us are on the run and don't take the time to eat the vegetables we should. We have a product called Deeper Greens that we put in our shakes in the morning, because you'd think it would taste awful because it's green, but they have made it like an apple cinnamon flavor, and it's delicious.
By far the best we've ever found. We've had some really good products in the past, but this is like, oh my God, throw Bluebell ice cream on it. It tastes so good.
But don't do that, or you'll be sick with the sniffles and snots again. So
we need to support Bluebell also. Come on.
Yeah, it says there's 15 servings in it. Dr. Lewis and I actually make it last a little bit longer than that. We do like half of a scoop instead of a whole scoop. Or if you can do it, you can do a half a scoop twice a day. But its ORAC value is incredibly high, like he was talking about. So it makes your immune system have a good boost. It gives you lots of energy, and then you don't have to tell people you're not eating fruits and vegetables, because you are. They've actually put them all in one container.
I'm sure it helps with the nutritional value of breast milk, because we ask our granddaughter, we're giving this Deeper Greens to our daughter-in-law, and our granddaughter just told me, she did, that, oh my God, Papa, that's some really good stuff. Thank you. Even though she's getting it secondhand through breast milk. Y'all know I'm kind of teasing about that, but it's got to work, and that's why we push it for that.
Well, the big reason we push it is because we've had other products in the past, and they were not non-GMO. They weren't organic, and it's a very big deal, and it's more pricey when you start doing that. But we wanted to make sure that our patients and clients have the very best possible product that they could. And for the money and what you got in it, the Deeper Greens by Ortho Molecular was far the best.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you pay a little bit more because it is all organic. But start reading the labels of those other things that you're mixing together, and I promise you they don't say non-organic when they're cheap. So keep that in mind, because it makes a difference in how you feel when you get something better in your system.
And then I would go to fermented foods. I hate to admit it, but I guess I'm going to have to learn to ferment them little boogers. And Janet and I take a massive amount of probiotics. She gave me 2 capsules last night, which means, oh, I love you and I want to take care of you. So I just say, yes, ma'am, thank you, and take them. And the probiotics actually can do a lot to make your neurotransmitters in your GI tract work better, and that makes you happier and more peaceful, and it goes back to making it easier to find that peaceful spot and to meditate also. But I took them, and I'm very grateful that she works hard to keep me healthier and happier. So fermented foods contain a massive amount of probiotics, and I think it's a good thing to do every day. Janet and I are enough German heritage that we like sauerkraut and things like that.
Got to have a good German beer to go with it, though. Just because it's a darker beer and it's better for non-estrogen mimicking.
Yeah, the lighter the beer, the more they filter it with things that are estrogen mimickers.
The more man boobs you're going to get is what he's trying to say.
She told that to a bartender one time. So he drank some kind of light beer, and she said, well, you're going to get man boobs. Well, the next time we saw him, which was probably a couple of months later, he said, I remember you. You're the one that told me about man boobs. I switched to this dark beer. We're really not big beer drinkers, and we don't drink a lot, but
we give good advice.
Yeah, well, if you're going to do that, you want to drink the best, and life's too short to drink cheap beer. Tell that to my brother.
The other thing that you should keep on hand to help you if you get sick, and we always keep it, but we always keep Lauricidin, which was the one for the viruses. There's also another one called olive leaf extract. And it has to have a high amount of oliprin. It's not just something you can grab off the over the counter at the health food store, because I promise you it won't be enough to kick it. But the one we have has a high amount of oliprin in it, which makes it work.
It's even improved over what we used to have, which worked real well.
And it actually it acts like a natural antibiotic. So if you don't want to take antibiotics, or you're not that sick yet and you can help prevent that before it gets to that point, olive leaf extract is a huge one to help you with maintaining health through the cold and flu season.
Yeah, Upjohn did the research on it in the 60s and 70s. I'll tell you how powerful it was. When I got a couple of spider bites, and me being the brilliant man I am, I waited 5 days until I couldn't walk before I went in, which was really stupid. But, they had to cut it out and do real surgery, put me to sleep and all that kind of stuff. And they came in and swabbed my spider bite, the wound where they cut it out, and then they swabbed my nose. And they said, we don't understand. You don't have MRSA or MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. They said, you get it from the spider bite. If you don't get it from that, you get it from the hospital. We don't understand it. They even sent another surgeon in, and they did not understand it. And I literally was giving a lecture to the nurses at 3 a.m. about olive leaf and olipirin and the research that goes with it. And they said, we've never seen this. The last 50 spider bites, every one of them had MRSA, and then it rotted out some more. I said, not mine. And mine healed up better. Even the surgeon said, this healed up better than anything I've ever seen. And he said, what did you do? I said, all those supplements you said didn't work. And supplements do work, and I still needed the medical profession. So, we should all get along because we all have a lot to give. One of the things, I keep coming back to stress reduction, but I'm big into, really, why would you be stressed? That's just worrying about the future, and worrying about it and focusing on the bad stuff actually creates it. But hand washing, I've never been a big fan of the antibacterial soaps. And I went and got my fingerprints made the other day, some other boondoggle where the government can get more money from us. And the lady couldn't get a good set of prints. And I said, well, what's it supposed to look like? And she put her finger up there. She had beautiful ridges. And I said, well, why don't I have them? She says, you wash your hands too much. I said, oh, well, you see 40, 50 people a day. You got to wash your hands between them. She said, oh, that's real common with people that have to wash their hands a lot. So even though I'm not a fan of antibacterial soap, just wash them with regular soap. You can wash them too much, but most people do not wash them enough. Famous.
What about the those little gel things that people keep putting on their hands for sanitizers? Is that great?
Well, again, everybody's got an opinion. I think the biggest ingredient in that is paranoia. It takes the alcohol a lot longer to disinfect than what people would think if they really knew it. When I got the shot the other day, they did an alcohol swab on my butt before they injected me. It's like, well, it may take 20 minutes to kill the bacteria, and you're injecting me right then, but it's none of my business. That's the frog meme, like, he's having tea. But I just think wash your hands several times a day, and certainly if you blow your nose or go to the bathroom, wash your hands. I'm famous for coming out and telling Janet, see that guy right there? He didn't wash his hands. And she says, oh, gross. Well, most men are gross. I don't know about women, whether they wash their hands a lot or not, but men are notorious, and then you shake hands with them. So, folks, think about it. Doorknobs and things like that. Who knows, what's there. So the vitamins, Zinc, major immune system booster. Vitamin C, we prefer liposomal C because you get 92 to 94% absorption versus the 12 or 13% of regular vitamin C. Vitamin D, massive, massive, massive. Everybody should, through supplementation, get your vitamin D up to above 50. Magnesium, vitamin E, B6, vitamin A, selenium. I think zinc and selenium are incredibly important. Then golden seal and echinacea. There's so many different things. And we've got the formulas that you need. So, if you want prevention, it's better to get started before you need it. So, y'all have a good day. I hope you've learned something new. And so go out and meditate and get peaceful.
And stay well. We'll be right back next time on the Green Wisdom Health Show. Have a blessed week.